So maybe you're a fan of watching Let's Plays or game reviews, and you want to try your hand at them, but you don't know where to begin. I remember when I first started, I had to research everything individually, and there was a lot of confusing and mixed information online, so I figured I'd make a video for people who want to do YouTube videos but don't know what they should do first. I should mention before anything that I'm going to recommend relatively expensive gear for the sake of not wasting your money with broken technology. I'm a firm believer in the you get what you pay for stance on buying electronics, and while you can certainly find cheaper options, you're likely to run into some snags. So I wouldn't recommend frugality here. These purchases are real investments if you're serious about making high-quality productions, but if you're interested in videos as a hobby, you can cut some corners. This video will cover all things related to audio and video capture, and even some loosely related things that I felt like mentioning. That being said, it's a little long, so I'll include annotations to skip to the next area. If you want to do PC gaming capture, naturally the first software that comes to mind is Fraps. But in the experiences I've had with Fraps, it's given me frequent frame rate drops that made it hard to capture consistently high quality video footage, even when I'm trying to record minimalistic indie game footage on my moderately powerful desktop. I've since switched to D3D Gear, a $35 program that's capable of capturing an AVI, which is a nice change of pace since most capture software records in lossless MOV files. Additionally, the popular Let's Player Markiplier uses Action, which is only $30, and while I've never used it, I hear good things. Along with that, you're going to need to use Handbrake, a transcoding app that lets you change the video resolution, adjust the bitrate, and use filters like crop, deinterlace, decomb, scale, and so on. Converting your captured videos through Handbrake into an MP4 file is the difference between a 200 megabyte file and an 8 gigabyte file when everything's said and done. So unless you want to use an entire terabyte of hard drive space for one video, it's basically mandatory. If you're looking to record gameplay footage on consoles, you have a few options, but I've narrowed it down to the best one. The Elgato Game Capture HD is the best, and the Hauppauge HD PVR2 Gaming Edition is a distant second. The Roxio Game Capture HD Pro is even cheaper, but from what I've read, it's a piss-poor product with abysmal customer service and has a tendency to churn out footage that ends up being corrupted 80% of the time. I've also heard people talk about the Blackmagic capture card, but I've read average reviews, and admittedly, I was never terribly interested in it to begin with. Originally, I started out using the Hauppauge HD PVR, which sports exclusively component input in the back and basic RCA input in the front. Everything about it worked fine. The video quality was great, the product itself was pretty consistent, but after moving from Texas to Georgia and unpacking all my technology, I accidentally plugged in a similar looking power cord, smelled burning plastic, and immediately realized that I had fried the device entirely. I called customer service and they told me it would cost at least $80 to repair it since it was my mistake and wasn't covered under warranty. Instead, I decided to buy a Hauppauge HD PVR2 Gaming Edition. At first, I was pretty happy with my purchase. It was smaller, it had a built-in capture button you could just press to begin recording, and the video quality seemed pretty good. After a while though, I went on to record some PS3 footage, and the picture just looked really blurry and nowhere near as sharp as I'd seen on my previous video captures. I also like recording Super Nintendo and N64 footage, but neither of the Hauppauge cards supported them. It had something to do with the specific video capture bitrate. When I tried to record the Chrono Trigger opening, it would turn black every few seconds and cut in and out continuously. Long story short, I don't really trust Hauppauge with my money after trying two separate models for over 2 years and having lackluster experiences with both. They seem to target people who want to easily stream Call of Duty gameplay without much concern for anything else. So if you're looking for something basic, that'll suffice. But if you want more flexibility, there are better options available. I ended up switching to Elgato because I'd heard good things about them after spending 3 hours researching my options, and I am thoroughly pleased with that decision. First of all, the Game Capture HD recording software is really user-friendly and comes as a free download from their website. It has a lot of features that support live voice recording, direct streaming integration, and you can specify the game title as well as a description for the video itself to make for simple file organization. You can also buy a separate add-on from their official website for around $15 that will allow you to record RCA input. This means all of your retro consoles are compatible, and there are options to upscale and stretch the image. Somehow it even supports iPads and iPhones. I don't know how the fuck that works. And most important of all, you can customize the bitrate recording speed. That means you can record footage in either laughably shitty quality or paranoid overkill quality that probably isn't even visible to the naked eye and will rip through your hard drive's free space at the speed of sound. But the Elgato lets you go over 30 megabytes per second, which is more than double the roughly 15 megabytes per second option any Hauppauge product allows, so it really gives you a greater sense of control. The entire time I was recording any PS4 footage, I felt like my purchase was really shining through and reflecting in the quality of the final product. And maybe it was partially a placebo effect, but whenever I recorded any standard definition footage as well, I felt like it somehow enhanced it more than any normal recording software ever did. One thing I would recommend is to buy a 1 or 2 terabyte external hard drive with USB 3.0 support, which not only will back up your valuable time-consuming gameplay footage, but it'll also let you process footage much faster than just recording directly to your hard drive. I would record footage to my videos folder, and it would sometimes take up to 20 minutes to render the entire clip. But as soon as I switched the file destination to the external hard drive, it would take about 60 seconds or less depending on the file size. A general rule of thumb I use when capturing video from computer games and console games alike is to always capture in 1280 by 720 resolution, also known as 720p. The difference between 720 and 1080 footage is pretty subtle, and while 1080 is clearer due to it being a higher resolution, it takes up much more space, and YouTube kind of makes it hard to tell the difference anyway. As for 720i versus 720p, the letters specify the scanning methods your monitor uses to draw the final picture on the screen. I stands for interlaced, and P stands for progressive scan. The short version is that interlaced footage is bad. Interlaced means the capture device is only putting half the frame fields on screen at one time and simulating the rest by flashing each line rapidly, which is invisible to the naked eye. The two fields are called the odd field and the even field, each of which are only displayed 1/60th of a second. Once you record the footage and put it into an editing program, the difference becomes very apparent, and you get these gross wedges that appear when there's a lot of motion in the video. Fortunately, Handbrake has an option called de-interlace that patches up the effect pretty nicely, but it's more of a rough fix than a full-blown solution. De-interlacing 1080i video, for example, won't magically transform it into 1080p resolution, but it's better than nothing. For my video editing software, I use Adobe Premiere CC, which is very user-friendly and easy to learn. The other popular choice is Sony Vegas, and I used it briefly back in 2008 when I had no understanding of video editing. My friend Michael Hecht of Pokemon Bridged used to tell me that Vegas was a better choice because it had more flexibility, but since then he started using Premiere and said it's perfectly sufficient in comparison to Vegas. But he explained to me that they have their own strengths, like Premiere being better for detailed keyframing, and Vegas being better for masking. But if you want access to really flashy effects, you'll have to delve into After Effects, which is both time-consuming and fairly complex, so I don't know much about it yet. For audio editing, I use Adobe Audition to both record and master my narration. As with most Adobe products, it's not super hard to learn, and admittedly, I only use it to add a few filters to my voice and remove any background static. If you're just interested in recording audio and slapping it onto a video, Audacity will suit you just fine. I just hate the interface. Anyway, on to microphones. First of all, you don't really have to get a nice microphone if you don't feel like it. It's mostly for the enjoyment of your viewers. Most people won't give you more than 5 seconds of their time if they hear really shitty microphone quality right off the bat when they click play. But if Let's Plays or basic voice narration are your main concerns, I can recommend some good starting mics. Before I delve any further, there are two big differences in microphones: dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. Dynamic microphones are often USB capable, meaning they plug directly into a USB port via a Type B USB cable, most commonly used for printers and copy machines. They're simple and convenient to use compared to the other option, XLR microphones, which I'll get to in a moment. USB microphones have a few setbacks. They're a bit of a loose cannon in the sense that you can't control their input level. So if you're whispering or screaming, the microphone will stay at a set level, meaning your lines can either be really quiet or your mic won't be able to handle loud sounds without cracking and peaking, which is what happens with a lot of cheaper microphones. This is where XLR microphones shine. They plug into an audio interface and you can manually adjust the volume. They also let you do something called monitoring. See, the annoying thing about recording audio is how you can't hear your lines in real time. You kinda just give it your best shot and cross your fingers and hope you don't flub any words. Monitoring lets you hear everything your mic hears in real time, so it's a much more hands-on process. Not to mention the audio interface also functions as a sound card that's likely superior to the one you're currently using in your computer. So music production dudes often monitor with them to hear every subtle detail in their music that wouldn't be detectable otherwise. In short, XLR microphones and audio interfaces are pretty costly and advanced compared to simple plug-and-play USB microphones. But if you have the financial means and you really want to have top-shelf sound when it comes to audio quality, you may want to save up and get one. If you want a high-quality XLR microphone but you can't afford an audio mixer, you can also use the Blue Icicle to convert the signal to USB, but you'd also be squandering your mic's potential a bit. So I'd recommend it as a placeholder until you can save up for a proper audio interface. Anyway, my first real microphone purchase was an AT2020 USB by Audio-Technica, which was also previously used by PewDiePie and has since been retired. I always found it very capable, but it didn't last too long before it would have trouble with peaking. My good buddy Anthony Sardina, also known as Antfish of Team 4-Star fame and the creator of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Abridged, uses an advanced XLR model called the AT2035. A lot of people use the Blue brand microphones, such as the Blue Snowball and the Blue Yeti, but I've never considered them to be anything too stellar. And honestly, I think its success is mostly the result of really effective marketing combined with ease of use features. But if a simple, easy to set up mic is your only concern and you don't have any prior microphone knowledge, you really can't go wrong starting with Blue. But it may leave much to be be desired. I've been told that the Samson C01U is also a popular entry-level microphone. Eventually, when I upgraded, I bought a Shure 57A Beta microphone, which looked very similar to the Rock Band microphone, only it doesn't suck tremendously. It doesn't come with a stand or mount of any kind though, so that's something you'll have to get separately. I used it when I recorded as Cold Snake for a small pun-oriented Metal Gear Solid indie fan game called Merry Gear Solid 2. And the nicest part about using lower quality microphones was how flexibly they worked with any kind of environment.
So I press Control while hugging a wall to knock on it. Got it. Say, Otacon.
Yeah?
Knock knock.
Oh, what was that noise?
You're supposed to say who's there.
Just my imagination.
I used that same 57A Beta when I recorded for a small cameo in the beginning of episode 12 of Dragon Ball Z Abridged back in 2008. And the acoustics were fine considering I recorded in a tall dorm room with hard walls and no sound absorption of any kind.
Oh my god! Frieza's men are stronger than we thought! Everyone, take your cyanide tablets!
But we told you we don't know any Frieza!
I would really recommend this one if you want a solid microphone to start with. Then after roughly 2 years of yearning for a nicer sound, I asked my friend Stephen Kelly, who is incredibly knowledgeable about all things artistic, if he had any recommendations. After a bit of chit-chat, he recommended a microphone by an obscure brand, the CAD E100S. I found that it works perfectly for booth recordings, but because it's a really high-quality condenser microphone, it's particularly sensitive to basically every sound, from the impact of my lips touching to water running through the pipes in my walls. Here's a little tunnel, and then here's a big area where enemies can hide behind little walls or stones or whatever. So it's not an all-purpose microphone by any means. You shouldn't get a really nice microphone until you have a nice soundproof booth available, because these things can seriously pick up everything, including me scratching my head or swallowing. It's kinda gross. As a side note, it's a good idea to invest in a pop filter for your mic to protect your recording stability and prevent any spit from getting into the mic. Most recording equipment is sensitive to plosives, any word that begins with a strong impact. They come in the form of a ball that fits over your microphone, also known as a microphone cover, or the usual pop filter, which is a cut of gauze-like material stretched over a circular frame that uses a clamp and flexible mounting bracket to attach to the microphone stand. The fabric disperses any puffs, so it doesn't show up in the recording. Headphones are optional since you can just use normal computer speakers. Hell, I just use a big jam box with an audio cable because I'm too lazy to install a whole sound system. But for any kind of audio editing, you're always good with any Sennheiser headphones. And if you want versatility, I've never had any problem with my V-Moda cans, although they don't have terribly good bass. I had a buddy let me sound test his pair of Bowers & Wilkins P5 headphones, and they had much better bass, but they seemed more geared towards listening to organic music like classic rock or jazz, and they'd be kind of overkill for anything less than an audiophile experience. Headphones are more difficult to make recommendations for because it really depends how you want to use them. But I'd say you should stick with anything from Sennheiser and avoid anything from Bose or Beats because you're paying for the brand instead of quality engineering. Oh, I almost forgot. Turtle Beach, Astro, Corsair, SteelSeries, Plantronics, and Razer are all good at what they do, but they rely on the assumption that you want one thing only: voice chat capable, lightweight headphones that won't hurt your ears from hours of use. They're basically exclusively for playing League, Call of Duty, or any cooperative game because they're good for group coordination, but as headphones they're kind of a joke. Lastly, audio interfaces, or preamps as some say. They can quickly get to be upwards of $200 if you want a nice one, but I remember starting off with some shitty $60 one from M Audio, and it got the job done. I don't even think they make it anymore because I can't find it anywhere online, which is probably for the best because it added a lot of static noise to my recordings, and it was just a bare minimum utility. You can still find some upgraded versions of that model for roughly $100, but you're better off just waiting and saving up for better brands. For PCs, one of the best brands is Scarlett, and for Macs, your best choice by far will be Apogee, especially since Macs are ideal for any kind of audio engineering or video editing aspirations. So I'm not sure what else should be mentioned. I covered capture cards, screen capture software, editing software, microphones, pop filters, headphones, and audio interfaces. I admit that this was a bit overkill just like every other goddamn video I intend to make brief, but hopefully it's answered most questions you'd have about what to spend your money on and what gimmicks to avoid. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you, and good luck.